Welcome! Penny that changed the coin collecting world forever. It looks ordinary, just another old coin. But this penny is so rare, even expert collectors dream of finding one. One was actually discovered in pocket change, and sold for an unbelievable amount of money. You've probably seen this penny before, but don't spend it yet. This penny is insane. It looks normal. But it's rare, so what makes it rare? And how can you tell if you have one? I'll show you exactly how to identify it, what to look for, and why it's worth so much. Watch the video till the end, and check your pocket change. You might be holding a fortune. Let's start. Number 1. You've probably seen this penny before, but don't spend it yet. This penny is insane. It looks normal, but it's rare. This is the 1944 Wheat Penny from the United States. And it could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. That's right, a single cent that might be worth more than a luxury car. And the best part? You could have one sitting in a jar, tucked away in a drawer, or hiding in plain sight. Coin collecting is one of the most fascinating and rewarding hobbies in the world. It's not just about money. It's about history, beauty, mystery, and the thrill of the hunt. Every coin tells a story, and some of them can make you rich. Getting started is easier than you think. All you need is curiosity, a magnifying glass, and a little bit of knowledge. And if you watch videos like this one, you'll quickly learn how to spot rare treasures hiding in everyday change. The people who study coins, understand mint errors, and know what to look for are the ones who strike gold. Quite literally, collectors who knew what they were doing have walked away with serious cash. One 1944 steel penny, struck by mistake on a leftover planchet from 1943, sold for over $115,000. Another example in high-grade condition brought in more than $108,000 at auction. These are coins that were never meant to exist, and they are insanely rare, but that's not all. Other coins have shattered records and created millionaires. A 1933 double eagle sold for $18.9 million. A 1794 flowing hair silver dollar went for over $10 million. And a rare 1907 St. Gaudens ultra high relief gold coin fetched $4.75 million. All small pieces of metal, but with value beyond imagination. Now let's dive into the story of the 1944 penny and why it's so special. During World War II, the U.S. Mint made a huge change in how pennies were produced. In 1943, copper was needed for ammunition, so pennies were made from steel coated in zinc. These look silver in color. But in 1944, the mint went back to copper. They used leftover shell casings from military supplies, creating what collectors now call shell case cents. Most 1944 pennies were made of this brass alloy, with the D standing for the Denver Mint. But here's the twist: a few of them were accidentally struck on leftover steel blanks from the year before. Those steel 1944 pennies weren't supposed to happen. They were a mistake. And that mistake turned them into one of the most valuable pennies in American history. To identify a real 1944 penny, you'll want to look for a few key things. First, the year, 1944. Then the mint mark, a small D, just under the date. That tells you it came from the Denver Mint. If it looks coppery or brown, it's likely made from the brass alloy. But if it looks silver or gray like a 1943 penny, you might be looking at steel. Those are the rare ones. If you want to be sure, weigh it. A standard 1944 penny in copper should weigh around 3.11 grams. But a steel one? That will come in lighter, around 2.7 grams. That tiny difference could mean a huge payday. Even the regular 1944 penny can be valuable in top condition. Circulated ones might only be worth 15 to 50 cents. A nicer one could bring in $1 to $5. Uncirculated mint state versions? Those jump to $10, $50, or even over $100. But for the steel version, the ultra-rare mistake, auction records have shown jaw-dropping results. One sold for over $64,900. Another brought in more than $85,000. And top condition examples have shattered expectations, reaching up to $127,000. That's the kind of value that changes lives. And it all starts with learning what to look for. If you've ever wanted to get into coin collecting, now is the time. It doesn't take a huge investment, just knowledge, patience, and a sharp eye. You never know what you'll find, so check your change. Look through old jars. Ask your grandparents. You might already be holding a tiny piece of history that's worth more than gold. Check your change. You might be holding one right now. Number 2. You've probably handled hundreds of pennies in your life, but there's one that could change everything. It looks like any other old cent, small, brown, and easy to overlook. But the 1945 Wheat Penny? That's a coin with a secret. A coin that, under the right conditions, could be worth thousands. And in some rare cases, even more. This little copper piece isn't just another coin, it's part of a rich and fascinating chapter in American history. Struck at the tail end of World War II, the 1945 Wheat Penny is a reminder of the sacrifices and innovations of that time. And for collectors, it's become one of the most sought-after coins from the era. Now, let's go back in time for a moment. In 1943, the U.S. Mint made pennies out of steel to conserve copper for the war effort. Those coins looked silver and felt lighter in the hand. But by 1944, copper was back in use, and the Mint started striking pennies using recycled shell casings, leftover brass from the battlefield. This continued into 1945, meaning every 1945 penny has a story forged in war, survival, and post-war recovery. Most of these coins were struck in Philadelphia, but millions also came from the Denver and San Francisco mints. The thing is, while hundreds of millions were made, only a small number have survived in pristine condition. And that's what turns this coin from common to incredibly valuable. So, what makes a 1945 Wheat Penny rare? It's all about condition and striking errors. While a heavily circulated 1945 penny might be worth just a few cents, those in perfect condition can skyrocket in value. Especially those with deep red luster, sharp details, and no signs of wear. But then there are the oddities. Coins struck off-center. Coins with double dies. Coins struck on the wrong planchet. These errors can dramatically increase value, turning a humble penny into a collector's dream. And yes, there are even rumors, though not confirmed, of steel planchet errors in 1945 as well. If one of those ever turns up, it could break records. Want to know if you have one of these hidden treasures? Start by checking the date, 1945. Then look just below it. No mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. A small D indicates Denver. An S means San Francisco. All three can be valuable, but again, condition is everything. A circulated 1945 penny is worth around 5 to 15 cents. In very fine condition, it might bring in $1. In extremely fine condition, maybe 2 or 3. But once you hit uncirculated grades, MS60 and above, that's where the money starts rolling in. A red, mint state 1945 penny can be worth $50, $100, or even $300 depending on the grading level. Move up to MS65 or MS66, and you're looking at values between $1,000 and $5,000. And the very best of the best? Coins graded MS67 or MS68 with perfect color, sharp strikes, and incredible eye appeal? Those have brought in thousands at auction. Now let's talk real numbers. Cold, hard cash. One gorgeous MS68 1945 Wheat Penny sold at auction for $20,400. Another, with slightly better color and strike, reached $38,000. And a top-tier specimen, flawless, brilliant, and rare, fetched a jaw-dropping $92,000 at a major auction house. That's right. $92,000. For a single penny, and that's not fantasy. That's history. That's the power of knowledge, of collecting, and of paying attention to the tiny details that most people overlook. So next time you come across an old penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. That worn-out coin could be a gateway to something amazing, because in the world of rare coins, even the smallest piece of copper can tell a big story, and sometimes, that story ends in a life-changing payday. Number 3. you might want to check your pocket change after this video, because that ordinary-looking penny from 1957? It might be worth way more than 1 cent. It could be worth thousands. We're talking about the 1957 Wheat Penny, a coin that many people have seen, most have spent, and only a few have recognized as incredibly valuable. It's one of those coins that hides in plain sight. You might already have one without even knowing it. This penny was struck in the final years of the iconic wheat cent design, which had been in use since 1909. By 1959, the wheat ears on the reverse would be replaced with the Lincoln Memorial, ending a 50-year run of one of the most beloved coin designs in U.S. history. That alone makes late wheat pennies like the 1957 issue something special. But there's more to this story. In 1957, the United States Mint produced hundreds of millions of 1-cent coins. Most were made in Philadelphia, with no mint mark, and a large number came from the Denver Mint, marked with a small d just below the date. At first glance, none of these sound particularly rare. After all, how can something so common be valuable? But coin collectors know the truth. It's not always about how many were made, it's about how many survived in top condition. And more importantly, it's about the rare errors and variations that slip through the cracks. That's where the 1957 Wheat Penny gets exciting, because among the sea of ordinary coins, a few were struck with stunning precision, perfect color, flawless surfaces, no scratches or wear. These mint-state specimens, especially those with a brilliant red tone, are highly sought after by collectors. But the real treasures? The rare errors. Some 1957 pennies were struck with doubled dies, where the design appears slightly duplicated due to a mistake in the minting process. Others were misaligned, struck off-center, or even on the wrong type of planchet. And these are the kinds of mistakes that can turn a 1-cent coin into a 5-figure payday. So how do you know if you've got a valuable 1957 Wheat Penny? Start with the basics. Look at the date, 1957. If there's a D under the date, it came from Denver. No mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. Next, examine the condition. Is it brown, or a brilliant red? Red pennies are usually the most valuable. Then check for errors, especially doubling in the letters or numbers, or anything unusual about the shape and strike of the coin. Now, let's break down the values. A 1957 penny that's been in circulation for years might only be worth 1 or 2 cents. If it's in slightly better shape, say, very fine or extremely fine, it might bring in $1 or $2. In uncirculated condition, these coins jump to $10, $20, maybe $50 depending on the grade. A red, mint-state 1957 penny graded MS65 could be worth $150. At MS66, the value could rise to $300 or more. But an MS67? Now you're looking at a coin worth over $1,000, and then there are the elite examples, the very best of the best, a flawless, gem-quality 1957 Wheat Penny in pristine condition has sold for $12,700 at auction. Another with rare doubling and deep red luster brought in $23,000. And one of the finest known examples ever recorded? It shocked collectors when it sold for $60,000, yes, $60,000. For a penny, and it all comes down to rarity, condition, and the knowledge to recognize a hidden treasure when you see one. This is why coin collecting is more than just a hobby. It's a journey through history. A hunt for beauty, mystery, and value hiding in the smallest places. And sometimes, those places are right in your pocket. So before you spend that old penny or toss it aside, take a closer look. Because it might not be just a coin, it could be a piece of American history, and maybe even your next big payday. Number 4. You might want to pause before you toss that old penny aside, because the one you're about to learn about, it could be worth a small fortune. I'm talking about the 1953 Wheat Penny. It might look like any other brown cent you've seen, but some versions of this coin are ultra-rare and shockingly valuable. At first glance, the 1953 Wheat Penny seems pretty ordinary. It features Abraham Lincoln on the front and 2 wheat ears framing the words, 1 cent, on the back, a design that had already been in circulation for decades. But what sets this coin apart isn't just how it looks, it's how it was made, where it was struck, and most importantly, how few survive in flawless condition. Back in 1953, the U.S. Mint was in full swing. The Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints together produced over 700 million 1-cent coins that year. That might sound like a lot, and it is. But as every seasoned collector knows, it's not always about how many were made. It's about how many survived the test of time in pristine condition. It's about the hidden gems, the error coins, the flawless strikes, and the coins that somehow escaped decades of wear and tear. The 1953 penny comes in three main varieties: no mint mark for Philadelphia, a small D for Denver, and an S for San Francisco. Each version has its own story, and each can be valuable in the right condition. So how do you know if you've got a valuable 1953 penny? It starts with the basics. Check the date and look under it for the mint mark. Then look at the color. If it's a dull brown, it's been circulated and probably isn't worth much, maybe a few cents to $1, depending on the condition. But if you've got a red or red-brown penny, that's where things start to get interesting. These colors indicate the coin has retained much of its original mint luster, which collectors absolutely love. Now, let's talk about errors. Some 1953 wheat pennies were struck with doubled dies, off-center impressions, and even wrong metal planchets. These are rare mistakes, but they happen, and when they do, they send the value of that coin soaring. A 1953 penny with a clear doubling on the date or lettering? That's a jackpot for collectors. And even without errors, high-grade coins from this year can fetch incredible prices. A circulated 1953 penny might bring in anywhere from 5 cents to 50 cents. If it's in very fine condition, maybe $1 or $2. Uncirculated examples start jumping in value: $10, $30, $75, or more depending on grade and color. Now, let's get into the serious numbers. A brilliant red 1953 penny in mint state, graded MS65, can sell for around $250 to $400. Bump that up to MS66, and now you're looking at $1, $200, maybe even more. But at the top of the scale, where the rarest and most flawless coins live, things get wild. One perfect 1953 D wheat penny, graded MS67 with bold red color, sold for $14,100. Another, with razor-sharp detail and immaculate surfaces, brought in over $29,000 at auction. And the record setter? A nearly flawless 1953 S penny, ultra-rare and absolutely stunning, fetched a mind-blowing $64,000. That's right. $64,000. For a coin most people would ignore or toss in a change jar. It just goes to show, coin collecting is more than a hobby, it's a treasure hunt. With a little knowledge and a sharp eye, you can turn spare change into serious money. These coins are out there. In old dressers, tucked in forgotten coin albums, or resting quietly in your grandparents' collection. All you have to do is start looking, so next time you spot a 1953 wheat penny, don't let it go too fast. Because in the world of rare coins, the smallest details can lead to the biggest surprises. And who knows? That one little cent could be worth a life-changing check. Number 5. Have you ever looked at an old penny and thought, it's just 1 cent? Well, think again. Because the 1949 wheat penny might be one of the most overlooked treasures in American pocket change. It's small, it's humble, but under the right conditions, it's worth thousands of dollars. Yes, thousands. This is the story of a coin that many people think is just spare change, but in reality, it could be a hidden jackpot waiting to be discovered. Let's start with a little history. The year was 1949. America was rebuilding after World War II. The country was growing, changing, and healing. The mint was back to using copper for pennies, after a brief switch to steel during the war. And in that year, millions of 1-cent coins were struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. Most people used them, lost them, or tossed them aside. But a few, just a few, were different. Those few are why collectors are still hunting for 1949 wheat pennies today. Now, the wheat penny design is one of the most iconic in U.S. history. Abraham Lincoln on the front. 2 wheat ears on the back. Simple, classic, and beloved by collectors everywhere. The 1949 penny is part of that tradition, but it stands out for a few reasons. First off, condition is everything. Most 1949 pennies out there are heavily circulated, scratched, worn, and dull. They're worth a few cents, maybe $1 if they're in decent shape. But once you find one in brilliant, uncirculated condition, especially with a strong red color and sharp strike, that's when values start to soar. And then there are the errors. Yes, mistakes made at the US Mint. And these are the golden tickets for collectors. Double die errors, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and even rare planchet issues. Any of these can send the value of a 1949 penny through the roof. And the best part? Most people wouldn't even notice unless they knew exactly what to look for. So, how do you identify a valuable 1949 penny? Start with the date, 1949. Look just below it. If there's no letter, it was minted in Philadelphia. A small d means it came from Denver. An S means San Francisco. All three can be valuable, but certain rare strikes from Denver and San Francisco are especially prized. Next, check the color. Red pennies, those that have kept their original copper glow, are the most valuable. Then, take a close look for doubling in the numbers or letters. That could mean you've got a double die error, which collectors go crazy for. And if the mint mark looks like it was stamped twice, you might have a repunched mint mark. Another rare feature that adds serious value. Now let's talk money. A circulated 1949 wheat penny in average condition might only be worth a few cents. In very fine condition, maybe $1 or $2. But in uncirculated condition, prices jump fast. A red 1949 penny graded MS-64 could sell for $40 to $75. MS-65? You're looking at $100 to $250. At MS-66, the value climbs to $800 or more. And for coins graded MS-67 or higher, those in nearly perfect condition, the price skyrockets into the thousands. But the big money comes when condition meets rarity. One nearly perfect 1949 D penny sold for over $1,200 at auction. Another flawless example from San Francisco, with a rich red hue and high grade, brought in $5,400. And then there was the gem, an incredibly rare, mint state coin with no visible flaws and blazing red color. That one sold for an unbelievable $68,000. Yes, $68,000. For a penny, and those coins are still out there. In old collections. In rolls of forgotten coins. Even hiding in plain sight in a jar or drawer. That's why coin collecting is so exciting. It's part history, part detective work, and part treasure hunt. Anyone can start, and anyone can get lucky, if they know what to look for, so the next time you're going through your change, stop. Look closer. That little brown penny from 1949 could be more than just 1 cent. It could be your next big discovery. Check your coins carefully. Because you never know, one of them might be worth far more than you ever imagined. Number 6. You've probably seen one of these pennies before. It looks small, brown, and ordinary. But don't be fooled, this little coin from 1950 could be worth a fortune. Especially if it has one tiny detail, a small D, just below the date. That's right, we're talking about the 1950 D wheat penny. It might seem like just another cent, but for collectors, it's pure gold. This coin is part of the legendary Lincoln Wheat Penny series, one of the most beloved and iconic designs in American coin history. With Abraham Lincoln on the front and 2 wheat stalks on the back, it represents a classic era of U.S. coinage, one that lasted from 1909 to 1958. But what makes the 1950 D so special isn't just its place in history. It's what happened at the Denver Mint that year, and how a handful of these coins survived in perfect, untouched condition. Back in 1950, The Denver Mint struck over 334 million 1-cent coins. That sounds like a massive number, right? So how can any of them be rare? Well, the answer lies in condition and quality. Most of those coins went into circulation immediately. They were used in everyday purchases, passed from hand to hand, worn down over time. But a very small number, just a few, escaped all of that. They were saved, preserved, protected from wear and damage. And today, those are the coins that collectors are desperately searching for, especially when those coins have a brilliant red color and a nearly flawless surface. But there's more to the story. Because some 1950 pennies weren't just well preserved, they were struck with rare and fascinating mint errors. Double dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, these aren't things you'd notice with a casual glance. But to a trained eye, they're signs of something incredibly valuable. So how do you know if your 1950 penny is one of the rare ones? Start with the date, 1950. Then, look just beneath the numbers. If you see a small D, that means it was minted in Denver. From there, check the coin's color. A dark brown or worn copper penny might be worth a few cents, maybe $1 if it's in decent shape. But a red or red-brown coin, that's where the value starts to climb, and then comes condition. If your coin is uncirculated, meaning no scratches, no wear, and full detail, it might already be worth more than you think. And if it has a high grade from a professional grading service, like MS-65 or higher, the numbers can get pretty exciting. Now, let's talk about auction prices. A circulated 1950 penny in good condition might sell for $1 to $5. In better condition, say, extremely fine or about uncirculated, it could go for $20 to $50. But when you hit mint state condition, that's when the value really starts to pop. An MS-64 red 1950 penny can fetch around $200. MS-65? That might bring $450 to $600. At MS-66, the coin can sell for over $1,200. And once you reach MS-67, nearly perfect, you're looking at $3,000, $5,000, even more, depending on the color and eye appeal. But here's where things get crazy. One stunning, red-tone 1950 Wheat Penny, graded at the top of the scale, sold for $15,200 at auction. Another with sharp strikes and flawless luster brought in $29,000. And the record breaker? A museum-quality specimen with unmatched detail and color, sold for an astonishing $67,000. That's right. A single penny, originally worth 1 cent, sold for $67,000. And it all came down to rarity, condition, and a little bit of luck. This is why coin collecting is such a powerful and rewarding hobby. It connects you with history. It sharpens your eye for detail. And sometimes, it puts real money in your hands. Whether you're just starting out or you've been collecting for years, the key is knowledge. Knowing what to look for, where to look, and what makes a coin truly valuable. So don't overlook those old pennies. Especially not the ones from 1950 with that little D under the date. Because the next time you check your change or dig through a coin jar, you might just find one. And if you do, you could be holding something worth thousands. Always remember, some of the biggest treasures come in the smallest packages. And that tiny copper coin in your hand? It could be the start of your next big discovery. Number 7. You've probably walked past one. Maybe even held it in your hand. It's small, brown, and easy to overlook. But the 1954 Wheat Penny is anything but ordinary. If you have one sitting in a jar or tucked away in an old drawer, it could be worth thousands of dollars. That's right. This little coin could turn spare change into serious cash. Let's take a step back. What makes this penny so special? At first glance, the 1954 Wheat Penny looks just like millions of other Lincoln cents. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the iconic wheat ears on the reverse. Simple, classic, and unchanged since the design first appeared in 1909. But what really sets it apart is the small D mint mark right under the date, proof that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint In 1954, over 251 million 1-cent coins were minted in Denver. That's a huge number. But as any serious collector will tell you, it's not just about how many were made, it's about how many survived in top condition. And that's where the magic lies. Most 1954 D pennies were heavily circulated. They were used in everyday transactions, passed around, dropped, scratched, and worn down over the years. Those coins might still be collectible, but their value is modest, just a few cents to a couple of dollars. The real treasure lies in the few coins that somehow avoided wear and damage. The coins that still shine with their original red luster. The ones that look as crisp and clean as the day they were struck. But there's more. Some 1954 D pennies were struck with rare minting errors, like doubled dies, repunched mint marks, or off-center strikes. These errors are often invisible to the untrained eye, but for collectors, they are golden opportunities. An error coin in high grade? That's a dream come true. So how do you know if your 1954 D penny is valuable? Start by flipping it over and checking its condition. If it's brown and worn, it's probably been through decades of circulation and won't bring in much more than face value. But if it has a bright red or red-brown tone with sharp detail and no visible damage, you might have something special. The most valuable pennies from this year are those graded MS65 or higher, coins that are practically flawless, with full mint shine and no signs of wear. Even without an error, a coin like that can be worth hundreds, sometimes thousands, of dollars. Let's break down the prices. A circulated 1954 D penny might be worth 5 to 25 cents. In better condition, say, extremely fine, it could bring in a few dollars. But once you move into uncirculated territory, things get interesting. An MS63 red 1954 D penny can sell for $75 to $150. At MS64, that jumps to $250 or more. MS65? You're looking at $400 to $700. And at MS66 or higher, the value skyrockets. One stunning red 1954 D penny graded MS67 sold for an impressive $7,600 at auction. Another flawless example, with razor-sharp detail and blazing red color, brought in $16,800. And the record-setting coin, a nearly perfect piece with eye-popping luster and pristine surfaces, sold for an incredible $57,000. Yes, you heard that right. A penny that once bought a piece of candy now worth $57,000. It's not a fantasy, it's real. And it's why coin collecting continues to fascinate people around the world, because every coin tells a story. Every old penny has a past. And sometimes, that past makes it a treasure, so take a closer look at your change. Dig into that old coin jar. Ask your grandparents if they have a stash of wheat pennies. You never know what you'll find. And if you happen to come across a shiny, red 1954 D wheat penny in perfect condition, hold onto it tight. You might just be holding one of the rarest and most valuable cents in American history. Check your coins. Look closely. Because one of the smallest coins in your pocket could lead to one of the biggest surprises of your life.